"You're nothing without my son." My mother-in-law screamed in front of the entire family. She told me to pack my bags and leave the house I had helped pay for. Everyone laughed when I stood up. But what they didn't know was that my mother-in-law had been working for me for 3 years. And that night, I was about to reveal who really owned the company she was so proud of. My name is Claire Bennett, and I'm 38 years old. For 8 years, I had been married to Daniel, and everyone in his family believed I was nothing more than a woman living off her husband. They thought Daniel was the successful one, while I was just his quiet wife who stayed in the background. His mother, Victoria, never missed an opportunity to remind me that I wasn't good enough for her son. She criticized my clothes, mocked my career, and constantly told me that Daniel deserved someone better. And the worst part was that Daniel never defended me. He would simply sit there in silence, pretending not to hear. But what none of them knew was that before I ever met Daniel, I had already built something of my own. 8 years earlier, I had started a small software company from a tiny apartment with nothing but a laptop, a few savings, and a dream. I worked day and night, slowly building the business until it became something much bigger than I ever imagined. But when I met Daniel, I wanted a normal life. I wanted love, family, and peace. So I stepped away from the spotlight and allowed everyone to believe that I had nothing. That was my first mistake. At a family dinner one evening, Victoria suddenly placed a folder on the table and smiled at me. "My son deserves a better wife," she said. Then she announced that Daniel wanted me to sign a post-nuptial agreement. I looked at the papers and immediately noticed something else. Daniel had been secretly transferring money from our joint accounts for months. He had been preparing for a life without me. I looked at both of them and simply said, "I understand." Victoria smiled, thinking she had won. But inside, I already knew something they didn't. For years, I had tolerated their insults because I believed family was worth fighting for. Victoria called me uneducated. She called me a gold digger. She once told me that if Daniel ever left me, I would have absolutely nothing. Then one night, I overheard Daniel talking to his mother about divorcing me. They planned to move Victoria into our house after I was gone. When I confronted them, Victoria looked me directly in the eyes and said, "Once my son leaves you, you'll have nothing." I stared at her for a long moment and quietly asked, "Are you sure about that?" She laughed. She had no idea that the woman she had spent 8 years humiliating had been secretly building an empire. The company I had started from a tiny apartment had grown into a multi-million-dollar business. I was still the majority owner. I sat on the board. I controlled the decisions that mattered. But there was something even more shocking. Victoria had been working for my company for the last 3 years. She believed she worked for a powerful board of directors. She had no idea that the mysterious owner she had never met was me. She had been bragging about her job for years, never realizing that every paycheck came from the woman she called worthless. Then came the night everything changed. Victoria once again insulted me in front of the entire family. "You're nothing without my son," she screamed. Everyone expected me to cry. Instead, I stood up calmly and placed a folder on the table. Victoria stared at me. "What is that?" she asked. I opened the folder and placed the company ownership documents in front of her. "Actually, Victoria," I said quietly, "you've been working for me." The room went completely silent. Victoria laughed because she thought I was joking. Then she saw my signature on the documents. Her smile disappeared. Daniel picked up the papers and his face slowly turned white. "This isn't possible," he whispered. I looked at him and said, "You never asked what I did before I met you." Victoria was shaking now. "You don't own that company," she said. I turned to her and calmly replied, "I do. And as of this morning, you no longer work there." Her face completely collapsed. "You fired me?" she whispered. "No," I said. "Your performance was declining for months. You were fired because you were no longer qualified for the position." I wanted her to understand that this wasn't revenge. It was accountability. Then Daniel suddenly reached for my hand. "Claire, please. We can fix this. We can save our marriage." I looked at him and felt nothing but peace. "The divorce papers were already filed," I said. "And the house you thought I would lose? It's mine too." Daniel had lost his position. His mother had lost her job. And the woman they had spent 8 years underestimating had finally stopped asking for permission to know her own worth. For years, they believed my silence meant weakness. They thought my kindness meant I had nothing. But sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one who knows the most. Never confuse someone's silence with weakness, and never underestimate the person you keep treating like they are invisible. Because sometimes the person your family thinks is worthless is secretly the one holding the entire family's future in her hands.